Hi, everybody. Mitch Tanenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today for this week's Security News Update. In the security and privacy alerts, security company KnowBe4, they're very well known in the training business. It's one of the products that we sell. They hired a fake IT worker. There is a kind of a significant effort going on by North Korea to use AI to synthesize people to do interviews, and it works, pretty successfully. In this particular case, they hired this person who they thought was going to be a remote worker. They shipped a laptop to an address, which is what's called a mule farm. Basically, what the person does for a fee is they set up a laptop here in the United States, and most of these farms, they set up lots of laptops at the same address for different companies. And then the hacker, whoever it is, North Korea, China, Russia, whoever it is, will then go off and access that computer remotely. And of course, it looks like it's in the United States. Well, it turns out as soon as he got his computer, he started trying to upload malware. That tripped alarms at KnowBe4, and they shut him down. The whole thing took about 25 minutes, which is actually, in one sense, pretty impressive. But it does point to the fact that these attacks using these AI to pretend that human being to create an interview is pretty effective. I mean, I don't know specifically about their interview process. I'm guessing it's going to change now. But, it's probably fairly intense. And the fact that he was able to, using an AI, able to, fake it out, pretty interesting. Next, in the software and hardware checkout, Google really doesn't have any competitors at this point in search. There are a number of other search engines, probably the most prominent of which is Bing, but it always has played a significant second fiddle to Google. Don't know if this is going to change, but OpenAI is going to go off and take the kind of the guts of ChatGPT and create a search engine based on that. They obviously already have a lot of data, although their data is not as current as Google's data is. So that's something they need to change. And, they're going to create a new product called Search GPT, which is going to be, along the lines of ChatGPT, much more friendly, as opposed to giving you a bunch of links and letting you try to figure out what the right answer is. They're going to use their technology to try to create an answer for you that answers your question. Oh, pretty cool. We'll see. It has not yet been released, but they've announced it. In the important issues department, the FBI says that they got into the shooter's phone, the person who shot at former President Trump, but they couldn't get into the encrypted messaging. Now, with the FBI, it's always hard to tell whether or not they're trying to further a subtle mission of banning encryption, or maybe a not so subtle mission. They've been trying to ban encryption since the 1990s, or it may indicate a limitation of Celebrite's technology. So if it turns out to be the second one of those, that is certainly interesting, that you can get in, but you don't have access to the credentials. In the legislative and legal department, Oracle agrees to pay 52 cents per victim, that's before legal fees, for a privacy violation. They, in 2022, were in the ad brokering business. They raked in about $2 billion in 2022. This year is going to be down to about $300 million, and in 2025 is going to be zero. I guess that 52 cents per victim is really costing them a lot of money. Finding these guys doesn't seem to work, the big tech companies, so we'll see how it goes, but clearly, the fines are not going to go away. Next, also in legal, is this the start of fallout from the Chevron decision. The Fifth Circuit declares the Universal Service Fee and Universal Service Fund unconstitutional. I understand where they're coming from, but fundamentally, the Universal Service Fund's been around for 40 years, 50 years, something like that. It funds computer technology for schools. It funds internet access to rural folks and poor folks. It funds the expansion of internet services in parts of the United States that are underserved. And at least as far as the Fifth Circuit is concerned, it's unconstitutional. Now, the Fifth Circuit only covers Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. So I think at this point, the only schools and poor people that are going to go off and lose access to the internet are going to be in those three states. I don't know for sure if that's the case, but that's typically the way that works. But it's going to encourage the Supreme Court to take up the case now that there's a circuit split. We'll see. A few weeks ago, they declined to take up a case also based on the Universal Service Fund. So we'll see where that goes. Stay tuned. Nothing soon. And it's going to be interesting to see whether the Fifth Circuit says that, that people in those 3 states no longer have to pay the universal service fee. And if that's true, what happens to the fund in those 3 states? Probably likely it goes away. Under education, if you are involved in a lawsuit, there is what's called a duty to preserve evidence or what's called a litigation hold sometimes. We haven't seen the end of this yet, but, the way normal people consider this is as soon as you have reason to believe that you're going to be a party to a lawsuit, then you have to start preserving evidence. Well, the challenge comes in what happens with social media. That's not something that's normally under your control. This particular lawsuit, what it said was that social media posts are considered physical evidence as opposed to testimony, and therefore they have to be preserved. So we shall see. And it's a challenge. How do you preserve stuff in an environment that you don't control? So I don't think we've seen the end of this. We'll see where it goes. But I tend to agree with the court at this point that it seems to me like that's physical evidence. In the breaches department this week, the largest U.S. trial court, that's Los Angeles, shut down for several days. 36 courthouses shut down, and it halted evictions. It stopped prisoner transfers, all because of the cyber attack. Now, the good news was they got up pretty quickly. So either they're pretty robust or the cyber attack was nipped in the bud. Either one of those is good. But LA has had a lot of problems with cyber attacks, the airports, the schools, other LA assets, now the courts. So it's an interesting challenge for LA for sure. Moving on, CrowdStrike. That's kind of the story of the week. One level, it's pretty simple. There was a bad software update, crashed a lot of computers. It took a lot of effort to go repair them, including manually touching those computers. That's one level. But at another level, there's a lot of other nuances to all this. And I think it's useful for people to actually understand it and think about it and understand, what happens if next time that's you? So consider that. Next, law enforcement is forcing hackers to regroup. That in general is a good thing. Anytime you can go kick hackers back on their butt, that's a good thing. It doesn't certainly mean that hacking is going away, cybercrime is in remission, but that we're making some good hits. And the good news is, one of the things it's doing is it's causing the hackers to fight with themselves. And that's great, because when they fight with themselves, they do stupid things. And when they do stupid things, it makes it easier to find and arrest them. Next, we're seeing that at least a goodly chunk of the CrowdStrike losses are not going to be covered by insurance. So the estimates at this point so far are the losses in the U.S. alone is about $5 billion. That's billion with a B. There are people who didn't have insurance, didn't have the right insurance, didn't do the right things before insurance, didn't have enough insurance. There's going to be a lot of that going around. And, if you were or were not affected and you're wondering about your insurance, we're not lawyers, but we do know a fair bit about insurance. So, if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to us. And lastly, the news bits for the week. Google rolls back the decision to kill third-party cookies. We knew that was too good to really exist. Most of the other browsers have already killed third-party cookies, so it's only if you're using Google that third-party cookies really even exist anymore. And fundamentally, their excuse was, what they said was going to hurt advertisers. What that really means is going to hurt their revenue stream. So, now they're going to come up with some other cockamamie solution. We'll see where that goes there, but not counting on it being brilliant, other than it will likely preserve Google's income stream. Next, hackers cyber attack Ukrainian heating systems. This is the heating utilities in Ukraine last winter, and left people without power, without heat for about 48 hours. So the good news was they were able to get it back together, but it just says nothing is off limits. And, if that means taking down the infrastructure, which you see Russia doing pretty significantly, they're okay with that. Next, CrowdStrike can't seem to catch a break. They handed out Uber Eats gift cards to people as a token and gesture. And so many of them were redeemed that Uber thought that it was a cyber attack. They canceled the cards, and people who tried to use them couldn't use them. And Now, CrowdStrike has more egg on their face, as if they didn't have enough. Next, the UK's telecom regulator called Ofcom fines TikTok $2 million for failing to provide certain information to them on child safety information. Obviously, $2 million to CrowdStrike is pretty much pocket change. You look at the sofa cushions, you find that. So it's not a big deal, but it certainly hurts their ego. And, is there more of those? Yeah, I think there's more of those. And I think the fines are going to continue to get larger. I think that's really where you start hitting the pocketbook. If you start giving them numbers that are significantly large enough to affect their P&L, that's when they'll change things. And lastly, in case you're wondering why software has so many bugs, well, you have to read the newsletter to find out. But bottom line is that we don't do a great job of testing. And in fact, AT&T just got whacked by the feds because they had an outage, right, that took out like 92 million people in February, and it is related to a poorly tested update that they deployed. So with that, thanks for listening. Until next time, stay safe. And of course, as always, if there's anything that we can do, please let us know. Thanks.